the Tibetan mountains that has reached an altered state near nirvana, kind of a blob vana, if you will. And there are rumors that he has attained a state of 0 calorie burn.
Couch Body. Welcome to Lunch Therapy. I am your host, Joel Marshall. Today is Interview Friday. We've got a great guest for you today. His name is Christian Bedoya, and also he is known as HumanAnimal, and he is a musician, a looper, a handpan player, a mentor. You're gonna love this guy, and we're gonna have some really fun time with some live music. And speaking of fun times, behind me is the poster for Kevin Krieger's show Honest Work, which is happening Saturday night. Only $15. I'm going to be there. Camel is going to be there. Join us at the Elysian Theater. If you haven't been to the Elysian Theater, you owe it to yourself to go there, because that's where all the fun, crazy stuff is happening. Equal Means Equal says, I have also achieved Blobvana. Yeah, thank you to our sponsor, Slob90X. Can help you get a slow, lazy, ordinary body. For those of you that have gotten too fit, we have the program for you. And thank you to them for sponsoring the show. Let's get into this show. This show is called Lunch Therapy. We're going to give you some therapy, some musical therapy, and we're going to get inspired. So that's good. I'm gonna get myself a modem. I'm gonna get myself a modem. Hey guys, I'm gonna get myself a modem. I'm gonna get myself a modem. Hey guys, I'm gonna get myself a modem. I'm gonna get myself a modem. Hey guys, that intro is the extent of my looping capabilities. Made that song about 4 years ago because I needed a theme song for the show. Got this weird little pedal, looped my voice a bunch of times, did not understand what I was doing. Since then, I've seen some incredible performers like the one we have today, utilizing this in miraculous ways to make music that is not only beautiful, but also feels kind of therapeutic. And that's something that we do here on the show. Let's breathe, because that's what we do also on the show, breathing. So let's do it. For those of you out there that don't breathe, I highly recommend it. It is something that has helped me out a lot. I spent a good portion of my life not breathing. Really gives you some brain damage. Some of it irreversible. In through the nose, out through the toes is what we say on the show. Hold it. Let it go. Some people say, Joel, why do you like breathing so much? And I say, because breath is life. Life is breath. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Todd Lee is here. Happy Friday. I have an announcement on Tuesday. Longtime viewer, Patreon of the show, someone who's been on the show multiple times, Todd Lee, will be here on Tuesday. He's going to be doing his first 3-minute stand-up special in the Trash Panda Comedy Club, so don't miss it, noon on Tuesday. Todd Lee says, I told my wife the next door neighbor died. This is a joke. This is going to be maybe something for his act. We're going to get a punchline here pretty soon. But until then, we're going to breathe in through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. I'm waiting for the punchline, Todd. I told my wife that the next door neighbor died. She said, who? Ray? I said, it's way too early to celebrate. I got that one. That was a good one. Jokes are encouraged here on the show. That is the basis of the show. The joy, having joy in our lives. Now I'm going to play a little clip from our guest today, something he calls breathe, since we're in the breathing realm here. So cool, this guy. Feel free to breathe during this too. If you're going to have a habit, it should be breathing. Yeah. Darren is here. Cool. Great to see you, Darren. Yes, my boy. I love it. Yeah. So anyway, let's get into this thing. Got to get him on the show, for God's sakes. Got a few more things to do. Got to thank our Patreons, of course. Here are our Patreons. We recently reached 30,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is like was a big goal for me. So thank you all for helping me reach that goal. Yeah, there they are, the Patreons. Every month they give me a little bit to make this show happen. Really appreciate all of you. Could not do this without y'all. Could not do it without people in the chat room. Howard Aronin is here. Breathing is my favorite habit. Wow. It's good because there are good habits too, right? Christian said something really interesting about habits that I want to ask him about. Remind me, because he said something like, don't make goals, make habits. I believe that's what he said. And now we got another joke from Todd. Why did the Avon lady walk funny? Because of her lipstick. I don't know. I don't know about that one. I don't know. That one, save that one for the Trash Panda Comedy Club on Tuesday. All right, let's get into this interview here with Christian, because we're going to learn some stuff and we're going to enjoy ourselves. So let's do it. All right. Now, Christian Bedoya. So he's known as the HumanAnimal. I found him on YouTube maybe a year ago. We had a little conversation, I think, in the chat or in the show notes or whatever you call it, the comments. And I was like, you should be on the show. And he's like, I would love to be on the show. And then I'm like, I sent you an email. And then you know how email is? You just lose them. You just lose the emails and everything just gets, and then a year later, you're like, what the hell? What remember that guy that was going to have me on the show? And so that happened. And so now a year later, Christian contacted me and I'm like, finally, geez, come on, man. He is doing live jamming on the YouTube under the moniker HumanAnimal. And he's been making these great soundscapes and musical performances. And he does, like I said, he does looping and DJing and creates his own music. He has been kind of making his own rules in the music industry. He came out of college and was like faced with this music industry that is constantly changing and evolving and really difficult to navigate. And he found himself some mentors, which I think is a super important thing. And then he also trained himself as much as he could, took all kinds of classes, invested in himself, invested in the tools that he needed. And now he is a very mature artist. He is putting out beautiful music for people, spiritual music, and then also he's a mentor himself. So That's a really beautiful thing. So I'm so happy to have him on the show today, and I can't wait to have you meet him on Interview Friday. All right. Welcome to Lunch Therapy, Christian Bedoya, HumanAnimal.
Meow.
Meow. It's great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me a little bit late. You kind of told the story of like, yeah, the comments and just getting to that very late. I responded immediately, and then you sent
Yeah.
me an email which I still have not found. It's not. It's
I,
not. I don't know what
I
email.
found it. I found something, but I don't know. I could have dropped the ball too, because it's just, the internet is so vast, and we find each other sometimes, but sometimes it's like this behind us, like we're out in space floating around.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, and so that's why I was so glad when I reached out and I was like, "Hey, I know it was 11 months ago, but are you still interested in
I'm
doing
like,
this
of course
interview?"
I
And you're
am.
like, "Yeah,
I've
man,
been
let's do
waiting.
it." I'm like, "Okay, sweet."
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome, and I am fascinated by two things: handpans and looping, which I'm amazed at what you do with these things, and I have no idea what you're doing, but I love the sound that comes out of it. And I'm wondering, like, how did you come to music in the first place? Were you when you were a kid, were you a musical person?
Yeah, so when I was really young, you kind of do those extracurriculars when you're young. Your parents put you in sports or they put you in piano classes. And
Yeah.
my parents, they put me in piano classes, and I really liked it until I didn't. And then I went into violin, and I played violin for a few years, and I went all the way through high school playing trombone. I was in like honor orchestra, then I went into marching band doing drums, and drums is actually my main instrument, which is
Wow.
interesting because you
Yeah.
won't see that at all like in the things that I'm doing now, just because I'm kind of doing more of like a one man band type of a deal,
Hmm.
doing the live looping.
Yeah.
So, what I really had to do after getting all of that previous training, like learning music theory, learning like the traditional music production stuff.
Yeah.
I had to train myself on the technology and guitar and bass and like relearning keys and understanding how to translate all that into a digital audio workstation like Ableton, which is what I use.
Mm.
Um, and how to figure out how to put all that together using you know MIDI controllers. Like what you saw in that clip was a machine micro, which is basically just a drum pad. You can load up whatever samples you want. It can be fart noises, it could be
Yeah.
all drums, but you just put some samples on there and then you just play the beat, and you have to be really in time with it. And so, yeah, just really a long process. I've been doing it since I'm like 10 years old or something. And it's only in the last maybe 4 or 5 years that I've really felt like I'm maturing in my artistry and able to express it in a way that's meaningful for me, but also it can translate to my audience.
Yeah. So when you're playing, like you were playing the drums there, and you said that you have samples for each, is each square like a different sound?
Correct. Yeah, and sometimes it's even a few sounds all together. Like it could be like a bass and piano. So you're launching one thing and it could be like a whole part.
Mm.
So when you see people doing that stuff like Fred Again or
Mm-hmm.
Beats by Jay Black, some of the bigger like finger drummer people,
Mm-hmm.
they do complete songs just using that because you're able to, you load the upper deck with like full samples of like this is like a string part and you just play a lot in time with each sample and you're able to kind of like cut them up in a way so it sounds more sampley.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to like speed things up as well so you can do cut time variations. So it gets really technical, just the finger drumming aspect of it.
Yeah. And then for the looping aspect of it, do you have another pad? Like, is that what that pad is with like all the different colors on it? Like, how does that,
Yeah,
I know
so
it's
I
a lot to
yeah,
explain,
so I have
but
what I mean, so I use Ableton as my main looper, and in Ableton it has a device called Looper, and that I set it up on this, and I can actually switch my camera here to show what's going on. Let's switch it up over here. So I have this guy right here, which is
mm-hmm.
a launch pad. And
Okay.
so you can't really see it because it's a little bit blown out because of
Mm-hmm.
the lights on it. But each of these like things, these pads here can be assigned in Ableton to begin a loop. And so there's eight pads across. So I have 8 loopers basically. And so
Mm-hmm.
I can start playing piano, press the piano looper, and then it's gonna start looping that piano that I just played. Same with the bass, same with my vocals, same with any like drum bits that I'm doing live. I have a couple other synthesizers or samplers as well that I use that I try to loop everything, but in the heat of the moment, mainly I'm looping bass, drums, and the piano. And then I have like this sampler called Arcade that I use very heavily to kind of give it that extra meat.
Were you like a computer genius or something that you came at this? Like, were you already like into computers, or was this like that you had to learn it on your own
Kind of.
as it
I
evolved?
mean, I mean, with this kind of computer programming or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
it's less about being a computer genius, more about knowing what you're intending to do. And that's,
Mm-hmm.
I think, one of the reasons why I needed to get mentors is because I had all this equipment and I had all these ideas, but I was having a really hard time navigating, implementing that in my DAW in Ableton.
Mm-hmm.
Because Ableton, when you open it up, it's a blank space that you could do so many things. Like I have so many knobs and levers and things that I can affect my voice. Like right now, if I just want to turn it into so I could turn on, I can turn on a lot of different effects just on the spot. I can make my voice sound
like a real cool jazz man, baby.
at kind of like the push of a button. And those are things you have to think about even before you start doing it, because you have to tell the program, okay, I want this button to control that. I want this knob to control that. And so,
You know, it's interesting because it kind of builds on itself. Like, you cannot take in all this information all at once. You just, as you go along, your tool set grows, and you're able to assimilate it into your performing because you built it essentially, right? I mean,
right, 100%. Like if I show my Ableton project, it looks
Yeah.
pretty daunting
yeah.
if you look at it. So I'm not sure
Oh,
if you
cool.
can see my screen here,
I'm gonna
but
get it on there.
or if you need to do anything on
No,
your
I
end
can
to
do
show
it.
the screen. But so this is what my Ableton looks like. And so I can just talk about it a little bit. So you
Yeah.
can see my microphone here is coming through, and I have some effect chains and stuff. I have like a auto pitch. So if I'm singing, I can tell it what key I want to do, and it'll just make it sound good. It'll make me in key. And then you can see
Really?
here this little knob, that's my like vocal harmonizer. So and then it just goes back to my own voice. And you can see here's the looper that I was talking about, and I can control that just right here physically with my hardware, the launch pad, and I have like the ability to, you know, delete it, and then I can kind of just start, I can just start recording myself right here, and when I'm done recording, I can press the button again, and now I can just start recording myself right here, and when I'm done recording, I can, when I'm again, I can just start recording myself right here,
Wow.
So I have some control, right? That's going on. Oh, here we go. There we go.
So
Let me
cool.
turn off the freaky stuff. Yeah. So each, like, if you look at each one of these rows or these columns, these are all different instruments that I have control over, and so I can select it and then.
So are you playing the keyboard right now?
Yeah, so this is like a sample I'm launching, and I can hold this down.
Yeah.
I'm just holding it down. And so that's literally just a sampler. And then I have, you know, I have several different instruments. I have another one that's kind of like cool voices.
So it's unique to you because you have your own unique samples and you have your own library.
Right.
And it's sort of like a confluence. It's like being a DJ and a musician at the same time, all together, and you do it on the fly live.
Right. Yeah. Especially with arcade, and I can bring up the plugin because it really is a backbone of what I do because it just has a lot in it already. So all of these things that they call lines, these are all different like packs of sounds that I can just choose from, and they just distribute on my keyboard, and they're each their own kind of stylistic thing. There's this funk one that I'm always going to. This sazon is one that I'm always going to, which is the one we were just listening to. That's like this kind of very Latin vibe, you know, you get the like, right? And so I'm able to like loop that, and then on top of it, I can just go in and play my own stuff on top. I can also control like this piano right here. That's what I was just playing, right? Right there. And I have a control here. You can see that I'm actually selecting different instruments. Like down here, this is more of like a Rhodes. So it sounds more like. And then I've even got a little funky bass guy going here. So I can really build upon all sorts of stuff. Like, and then I obviously have a bass, like a big bass, and then I have a kind of like a dubsteppy bass. And this one, I actually think I have. Where's the control for this guy? There it is. So lots of control happening, lots of things that I've had to think about of like, what do I want to do with each thing? Like all of these racks are built in a way that I have control over, like filters, and everything is on a looper. So anything that I do can be recorded and played back. And then on this side over here.
Oh, go
ahead.
Do you perform live, like at Burning Man and that kind of thing?
Yeah. I have not been to Burning Man, surprisingly enough. But I do play shows, lots of local shows. I've been doing some more. I've gotten some really cool opportunities lately in the last couple of years. Like last year, I played Love Long Beach, which is that festival in Long Beach, right next to the Queen Mary. That's pretty Pretty big. It's
Cool.
awesome. One of my friends runs the noise stage, and so he asked me to open up that stage last year, which was really, really fun. Um, this year, I played Mycelium, which is a small friend-run, very conscious community festival run by really amazing people. I went last year and was like, I need to contribute to this festival in some way, and so I contacted them, hung out with them, and played some house shows for them. And they were like, yeah. And so they let me play twice at the festival this year. I'm doing another festival in September 20th. I'm doing like a sunset set for a festival called Nude Ranch. And I'm just
I saw
plugging
that.
things
Nude,
now.
N-O-O-D. Nude Ranch.
NOOD, Nude
What does that
Ranch,
mean?
because so the people that put it together, their company is called Noodle House Music.
Oh, yeah.
So they're kind of like a collective of house music DJs and producers, and some of them are my friends. And I saw that they were putting on this festival, and again, I asked. That's one big thing I tell to
That's good.
a lot of my students or clients is like, hey, like if you're frustrated and like how things are going, you got to ask. Like that's the biggest thing. Like don't be afraid to ask for shows. If you like, even if they're big ones that you maybe don't even feel like you deserve to play or you're good enough yet.
Yeah.
Never hurts to just put yourself out there and let them know that you're into it, right?
I think this is
That
a
you
good
wanna
I
contribute.
think that's a really, really important thing that what you're saying there is that you do have to communicate because otherwise people don't know you want to do something,
Totally.
Also, I said that quote earlier about building habits rather than setting goals or something. Is that what you said at some point?
Yeah, I think I
Can you
remember
talk
what
about that?
post you're talking about. Because a lot of people get hung up on achieving things, achieving a goal. Like, I need to finish this song, this album, I need to do this or that, as opposed to focusing on what are the things daily that will lead you to those goals, right?
Yeah.
I guess one thing I like to think about is like, what is the process of getting to a goal? A couple of years ago, I kind of put myself to the task of, I want to write more music. I want to play more shows. How do you do that? And you need to pretty much write constantly, consistently, practice pretty much every day or as much as you can, and practice with some intention. And you'll notice that once those things become habitual, those bigger goals come into focus a lot easier. They become less obscure, less like it's not a mountain you're climbing. You're kind of like climbing up a ladder. Because you'll just notice you'll just get better and better and better, because you're not just like, one day I'm gonna have a full album, one day I'm gonna like play the biggest show ever, because it never really happens like that.
No.
You pay your dues however you're inputting that work.
And is one of the ways you do that by doing live performances on YouTube?
Correct. Yeah.
And-
Like I love streaming. I love recording what I'm doing. It took me a long time to get to that point where I felt comfortable. It still is kind of
Yeah.
weird to do, and I do find myself getting bogged down creatively, just because when you're going for an hour or two just off the dome improvising music, it gets a little bit off. So recently I've been wanting to do different styles of content, either just going through like deep dives on plugins that I'm using, setting up different templates, things like that, tutorial based type things on how I do things, maybe even just like talking about music, talking about what I'm currently doing with the music and how I'm putting it together. Just different modalities of like using music as an artistic self-expression, because that's one of the things I kind of notice these days, is that there's a lot of marketing towards just making money in the music industry as opposed to like the artistry of it. So that's like my mentorship is very much geared towards knowing who you are as an artist and being solid in that, so that all those other things aren't really they're not impeded by your ambition for money or your ambition for like a big stage show or anything like that, or like that ambition is good. It's definitely something to have, and I respect the people that are really like into the money making part of the business, but I think there's something really cool when you see someone that's just purely an artist and they get rewarded for that.
Yeah, I love that too. The you have a mentorship program, right, that you offer to people, and is that where can people see that? It's on your website, right?
Yeah, if you go to HumanAnimalMusic.com, it's pretty much all geared towards that. It's very simple. It's just a one-on-one mentorship with me, 10 weeks. We go through, and this is for anyone who's kind of just getting into it or intermediate or advanced. I can definitely, we drop in on who you are, what you're doing, what's stopping you from getting to where you want to be. I think a lot of people get in their heads so much so that they don't even do anything.
Yes.
And myself getting a mentor was one of the ways that I overcame a lot of those things. And I'm still constantly investing in myself and practicing. And I by no means think I am the best or whatever. I just think, hey, it's important to know that you don't know what you don't know, and having someone that's invested in your own growth is like it's crazy how much that helps. It's monumental in terms of your growth.
Beginning? Who were your mentors?
I had a couple, so it depends. So I had a couple in like the audio visual industry that really helped me kind of get my feet on the ground, learning technical aspects like signal flow, audio engineering. I can shout out Matt Borden was a mentor of mine. He's a studio owner, musician, audio engineer. He owns Omen Room out here in where is that? Buena Park. And yeah, we would hang out all the time. I would help him at his studio. We would record stuff, and he really taught me a lot about the industry in a studio setting. Another one of my friends, Austin Jacobson, he spent a lot of time with me figuring out my loop setup. Like, hey, you need to do this, or like, this is what I'm doing. This is the tools I'm using, and that really helped marinate my own setup. It took me like five or 10 years to get this really nailed down in a way that I know that I can perform live and I can do it on my own. And then another one is Connor Arias. He goes by Oral Ponic. He's a really, really amazing producer, studio engineer, AV technician. We would work weddings and shows and all sorts of stuff. And he just like his professionalism and his like generosity of sharing his knowledge with his own setup. He helped me set up my new interface. That's like an 18-channel interface, so I can have my guitar going, 3 different microphones, a whole bunch of other hardware that I just wanted to integrate in my setup because I was just using a small little interface at first with just 2 inputs. Now I have 18, and I'm like, what am I doing with all these inputs? I still find myself kind of only using what I've been doing just because it's so much, but slowly I've been integrating more and more stuff. But yeah, like having someone that's invested in your own growth in that way and that like listens to you and isn't just a library of videos to watch is one of the ways that I made so much more progress within a couple of years, as opposed to really just I can do it all on my own and figure it all out. Like I don't need anyone. And that's like I thought like that for a while, and I think that's one of the reasons I started my mentorship program, because I know people are in that space that could use the help.
You can become very isolated working in this way, right? Because you're a one-man band. I'm going to play this thing where you broke your handpan.
Okay, I think I broke my handpan.
hilarious. I don't know what happened there. So you also play these analog instruments like the handpan. Where did you learn how to play the handpan? How did that come up? Because I find that instrument just so beautiful.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite instruments for sure, especially the fact that you're locked into just a certain scale, a certain amount of notes, but you can find endless patterns in it. So I taught myself how to play it. I would look up some videos on patterns, how people are playing it, how they're hitting it to make the kind of like noise,
Yeah.
things like that, certain techniques. But mainly I just, since my background is drumming, it was easier for me to get like the rhythmic style of it flowing. That's one of the things that I feel like I'm really good at, is I'm good at flowing. So if I just start playing piano or the guitar or like a xylophone even, it's kind of all the same thing once you kind of understand the scale that you're trying to play, and then you can play around within that scale to make different harmonic kind of relationships.
Isn't it really good to start with drums? Because I don't know if it was David Grohl who said that it was like, if you start with being a drummer, then a lot of times you play the other instruments like it's a drum, because you have it. It's the rhythm is really important no matter what instrument you're playing.
Yeah, I think it definitely is really helpful, especially with the hand-eye coordination. I think a lot of people that just practice like guitar or something like that, rhythm is kind of abstract to them. They really have to like learn a song by playing right along with it, as opposed to knowing like the offbeats and the 1-iandas, 2-iandas, 3-iandas that live within the meter of a measure, right? Like, so in a 4-bar beat, there's so much stuff that can happen, as opposed to just like doots, 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 or just like, just the strumming a guitar that's like ding, 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 ding. Right?
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Here you are playing the handpan. Looping it. So cool.
Thank you. Yeah, so that weird noises and like how it sounded, it was broken. I actually was playing around and routed the mic that I use for that into my like vocal modulator thing.
Is that why it was sounded? Why it's broken?
Yeah, and that's why it just sounded so weird. And
Love that.
and I thought it was so funny that it's like making a very beautiful instrument just sound like super trashy, but also kind of cool at the same time.
Yeah. You seem to have Game of Thrones. Todd Lee was saying, it appears you're a Game of Thrones fan. I see the tree. It looks like the map of Westeros.
That is Westeros. Yeah.
Are you thinking that maybe you'll do some soundtracks, or maybe you do this already for TV and film?
I would love to. The thing about me is I find myself being like, I can do that. Like whenever I hear soundtracks and stuff, but it's not something I apply myself to mostly. I really just make live loops, try to like create a vibe. But I mean, I've definitely dabbled in creating soundscapes and soundtrack-ish type things. One of the things I've done recently is I teamed up with this healer. His name's Tommy Sobel. I feel like he calls himself like a lifestyle coach, something like that. He works with like businesses and entrepreneurs on how to focus.
Yeah.
And so he has a process, and he's invited me to do live looping, but instead of it being like my traditional making funky beats and dancey stuff, I'm doing live binaural beats. So
wow.
I have this plugin in Ableton where I can control frequencies, and so I play a certain set of frequencies together that promote focus, alertness, mindfulness, that kind of a deal. And it's coming from two different speakers, so it creates that kind of like
Yeah, I've
creates
heard
that
that.
binaural beat, right?
Yeah, and that it like does something between the two ears, I guess. Does something between the ears that actually affects between the ears.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, so if you have a frequency that's playing like 14 hertz and then another one that's doing like 16 hertz, those waves will bounce across each other, creating that beat. So that's why they call it binaural beats. And it's been, I don't know how proven, but I feel like it does promote these certain physiological responses, whether it's relaxation, mindfulness. It's some of it is even healing, because I think obviously with sound healing, there's that element too, because it's a physical response, right? Like sound goes through your body, and you're made out of water, so it's vibrating the water in your body, and it can do all sorts of cool things. But what I do is I'll play those, and then I'll play some piano on top of it and have my own like samples going through it. That's, more of like that meditative kind of a vibe. And also I'll do that for like an hour during their like focused sessions. And we'll do a couple sessions like that, usually like 3 hours long or something. And so that's kind of one of, I guess, soundscape type of thing. But it definitely does sound like it could work in a soundtrack for sure, because it evolves. Yeah.
Yeah. I think probably for you, maybe the best thing is for people to hear your music and then utilize it in different TV shows and things like that, because then you're not like trying to match your work to whatever film or television show it is.
Right.
Maybe them utilizing it as it is, because it is a lot of work, and maybe to be a person that does music for film and television, that kind of becomes what you do, and you seem to want to do something a little bit freer, I think, and more improvisational. It'd be interesting to see you do music for something like a play or something, or a movie that do a live soundtrack for a movie, like they used to do that with Metropolis and a few other kinds of movies. You can take like a movie and do the soundtrack. That would be kind of beautiful. And I like what you said about the idea of you're actually affecting the person's body, the molecules and cells in their body remotely through sound. Are you are you a spiritual person? Do you do meditation and that kind of thing?
Yeah. Like when I love doing breath work. I sit with tea with my fiance. She is a practicing tea ceremonialist. I'm not sure if that's what you call it, but yeah, she does living tea sessions. So she does like a traditional tea pouring ceremony. It's all silent, and it's living tea, so it's a very beautiful. It's a very beautiful. Oh yeah, there's a little picture of us doing that. This is actually one that I hosted. I did like a boys trip. I did a boys trip, and I was like, I don't care what we do as long as we sit with tea, because it has helped me so much in regulating a lot of emotions, putting myself in a grounded mind state. Because one thing I realized after I started doing breath work and sitting with tea, this kind of meditation, is that I never really gave time for myself at all to, and people are like, meditation's so hard. They can't sit still for 10 minutes, which is our society. We're programmed for like, gotta always be doing stuff. You can never not be doing things, or else you're not productive.
Yeah.
So once I started doing this, I realized how powerful it is to give yourself an hour or 30 minutes even just to sit in silence and let those thoughts kind of wash over you and not take control over you, but accept that they're coming and going, and that's not who you are. You're not your thoughts. You're just you, and you
That's
can,
the
you,
biggest thing that
yeah,
I think that was the biggest thing that hit me was when I finally understood what someone maybe had been told to me before, is that you're not your thoughts. I think that's one of the biggest traps that people can get
totally.
into, is they think that they are their thoughts, and therefore what they're thinking
Yeah.
defines them. We were talking the other day about the space between the thoughts, and how that can be freeing to
Totally.
try and expand the space
Yeah.
between the thoughts, where you can just be. Do you practice meditation or tea ceremonies or these things on a regular basis? Because we were talking about how, you want to change your habits.
Yeah. So I do breath work pretty much every day. That's the
Yeah.
main form of meditation. I do exercise pretty consistently, which I find is a form of meditation, depending on
I think
what
so.
kind of workouts you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like sitting with tea is probably the closest form of meditation I'll do, and Katie and I will do that pretty consistently. It's
Yeah.
harder when it's really hot out, being in
Yeah. Yeah.
California, you're like, okay, let's sit with a piping hot bowl of tea when it's 100 degrees out.
Yeah.
But either way, it's kind of nice to just sweat it out and let your body just do its own thing and sit in silence. And
In India, they say having hot tea actually cools you down. And I'm not sure how that works, because you do get hotter. You definitely get
yeah,
hotter. But they're like,
yeah,
no, it's good in hot weather. And I don't know, maybe your body gets hot and then the air feels cool and somehow it makes
right.
it better. I don't know.
Yeah, like regulates you're
Regulates
just
you
the same
somehow.
temperature. It's like now I'm technically the room temperature,
Right.
100 degrees or something.
Now I'm heating up the world.
Yeah. Yeah, but I found
Yeah.
that sitting with tea is a good form of meditation if you're someone that struggles to just sit there in silence, not doing anything, because it's more active. You're sitting with your eyes closed. You have a bowl of tea that you can look at, and you can watch the tea transform the water and watch
Mm-hmm.
the tea kind of expand as well. So it's really nice if you're someone that has trouble sitting with their eyes closed for a long period of time, because you're actively doing something, but it's completely silent, and you're also just focusing on the tea, right?
How
And
did
how the
she
tea
get into
tastes.
that? How did she get into the tea ceremonies?
Yeah, so she went to a retreat,
Mm-hmm.
and they were serving tea, and I think she fell in love with it there, and so she started researching. She's someone that whenever she finds something she likes doing, she researches it intensely and
Mm-hmm.
wants to learn all about it. And I noticed when she came back from the retreat, she was like, I love this so much. I want to do it all the time. And I'm like, cool, I want to do this too. It sounds awesome. And I saw her glowing from it. So I like, let's do it, babe. Let's get
Yeah.
into it. Let's pour some tea in it. And like I love tea already, and it's not like tea bags. It's this really fragrant, beautiful tea that you just watch it transform the water into something that's going in your body, that's also like healing you and calming you down and grounding you and helping you like expand.
Yeah, my wife and I met over a cup of tea, and she made a dynamite cup of tea, and I was sold right there. So
They get you with a cup of tea.
they do. They get you with the cups of tea. All right. So let me get a different background here so we feel like there's someplace else. Where do you see yourself going forward? Or do you do, I know we talked about habits and all that and not necessarily setting goals, because a lot of times the goals are like expectations that sometimes don't appear, and we wonder, if we're on the right path or whatever. Do you set goals for yourself though?
Oh yeah, I mean like it's one thing to set goals that like it's one thing to just be like I'm just setting all sorts of goals, and it's another thing like you should have set goals. You should have
You should know where you're going,
some
right?
things you want to achieve. You want to know like some benchmarks
I
you want to
think you were
hit.
basically saying you set goals and you work backwards from them, which is similar. It seems to be like one of the things you were saying about it.
Right,
right?
right. Like my goal is mainly I have a couple. So I want to work with music companies, like hardware companies like Novation or Akai or Roland or Native
Oh, really?
Instruments,
Yeah.
any of the things I have around me that I'm like, hey, I use your products and get use some of their stuff. I've worked with some plugin companies, but make videos and talk about their products, like just kind of be an ambassador for them. That would be
Oh, that's
one of
good.
my bigger
Yeah.
goals, is that be a part of my repertoire, because I just love talking about the technology and talking about the gear that really makes music making a
Yeah.
lot more fun these days, because it's not just, oh, let me plug in my guitar to an amp anymore. It's like you could do so many things. You have, like, my friend has a guitar that's a MIDI instrument, so he plays the guitar, and then he can turn it into a saxophone, and then he can turn it into a bass, like a
Yeah.
sub bass, and then he can turn it into strings. And so it's just so cool to see how music making has evolved, and there's so many ways of making the music that you want to make. So I love talking about that stuff.
Do you ever feel overwhelmed by that?
Oh
Like there's
yeah.
so many different possibilities?
Yeah.
That sometimes
Yeah,
makes
that
me
was my that
crazy.
was that was my main thing when I first started kind of putting my setup together.
Yeah.
I have a guitar, I have this looper, I have this keyboard, I have these buttons, but how do I bring them all together
Yeah.
to make something cohesive, to present to an audience, but also to kind of create music on my own in a fluid manner. So I was very overwhelmed, which is how, like, Austin, he helped me kind of put it together, because he was doing a similar thing on his end. And so he was like, here, you just need to, like, think about what you want to loop, how you want to loop it, what's controlling what, and then just keep building upon that. And so iteration after iteration after iteration, I finally got something workable. Because 4 or 5 years ago, when I was still living at home with my mom, I was like on a desk that was super small. So basically, all I had was my keyboard and my computer. So I was very restricted
Hmm.
to what I was using. And so I was just using my keyboard to loop. I was using the pads on the keyboard to control loops and control just 4 different instruments, to now I have 8 loopers, 8 different instruments, samples that I can launch at any time. Um, and so just a manner of just building on top of, like, a small step to another step to another step, like, because I'm still constantly iterating. I have a
Yeah.
couple different templates that I use depending on what I'm trying to do.
I think about like it's interesting because you can do things so simply. Like there's that song, you know that song Clint Eastwood? Dun dun
Hmm.
dun 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 dun. Dun. Then I saw this video where they were like, that's just one button on this keyboard that you can buy. Like that's a sample. And they were
Right.
like very open about it. They're like, yeah, we just play that and then we sing the song or whatever. So like you
Yeah.
can do so much with so little. And then things can become
Totally.
so complicated that I think it's kind of great that you are like such a spiritual person and you're about like being in the moment and taking time to breathe and look at the tea, because I think it's a great balance to the complexity of your art form. And somehow that probably feeds into what you do. And that's why you're so kind of serene. And when I see your music or listen to your music, I feel calm. And I think that's really a great thing. Do you have any
Awesome.
aspirations of being like a huge rock star like some of these guys are? You know, playing the Coachella
Um,
and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to play bigger shows and do stuff like that. I'm in for all of it, but mainly I really like just exploring my music, and I like putting stuff out. I hope people like what I do.
Yeah.
That's why I started my
Oh,
channels and
cool.
everything, and try to be consistent on that, because one of my goals is for my YouTube channel or Twitch or whatever to help me get my own sustainability, right?
Yeah.
For that to be my main source of income, so I can kind of just be at home, do
That'd be
my
great.
shows, and work with music companies, help people figure out their own musical aspirations, and that kind of be the ecosystem in which I'm doing stuff. But I do really like playing shows. It's really fun. It's really fun just like going in without knowing what I'm gonna do for the most part.
Wild, yeah.
And yeah, and one of the things that's been really fun is the ability to have people come up and take the microphone and start freestyling with me. One of my friends, I
That's
think he
beautiful.
might still be in here,
Yeah.
De'Aaron,
Yeah.
I think he said my boy,
Yeah.
in here. Yeah, he's someone I work with a lot right now. We're currently working on some covers to bring to shows, so we're starting to do a little bit more intentional things with the music. But I just love the way that I do things because it is very collaborative. It's very interactive, and so that's one of the things I like to bring to the shows. Like, hey, does anyone have an instrument? Does anyone have any skills on the vocals? And just come up, take the mic, and I'll play some beats, and let's make music on the spot right now.
Love that. We're going to do that for our dance break. We're going to make some music. I won't
Dance
be
break.
making music, but you will be. That is super cool. So people can go to Human Animal Music on YouTube and see that. Are you focusing on any particular social network, or are you trying to do all of them at once?
Yeah, it's in between. It's both Twitch and YouTube. YouTube is the one I've been focusing on the most. But it's a tough algorithm with that guy
man,
with
it is.
music. I've experimented a lot with the titles and the times at which I'm streaming or when I'm uploading and stuff. But mainly it's all consistency, which it's a tough nut to crack with music sometimes because especially when you're making it all up, it's like I have hundreds of videos on there already.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, do I just cut up what I have and then just start posting little parts of it that are highlight
I like
reels?
that you're
'Cause there's-
making shorts, because shorts seem to up the ante a little bit for YouTube. They love
Yeah.
the shorts.
Totally.
And then also, like, it's also sometimes with the long form live, you have to like balance it somehow because YouTube doesn't love the long form live shows for some
Yeah, it's
reason. It
weird.
doesn't give you a lot of love. And then also
Yeah.
the thumbnails. Like I notice on your site, I mean, I've been listening to a lot of your music, that probably it might be good to have thumbnails that differentiate between the different ones so that, not that I'm an expert or anything like that, but so that people can pick and choose, from a visual, because everybody's so visual, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. I just love what you're doing. And you're doing some tutorials on there too, right?
Yeah, I have a few up there. But yeah, again, it's one of those things where that's the overwhelming part where I'm like,
It is overwhelming.
I end up just wanting to play music. And so that's what
Yeah.
I do because I have my setup in a way that I can just push some buttons and I can go live and that's easy. And then after the fact, I'll like cut things up for Instagram, cut things up for TikTok every now and then. But mainly I'm kind of on Instagram uploading things, trying to let people know that I'm like, hey, let's if you want to learn how to do this, if you're interested in getting more help with your music, getting more help with your artistry, that's what I'm here for.
That's cool. I love that. We've got Tippy Toes Flows and Darren on the chat. Let's see. Got to get this guy more viewers on YouTube. He is so entertaining. That's what I'm saying too. We got to get you more views. That stuff all drives me crazy too, because I just want to do the art form or whatever. But
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah,
It's like
please like and subscribe. Go over to the Human Animal Music, because that's like you say. If you could make it a business, your YouTube channel, there's so much opens up because you can advertise for other people that you really believe in their products. You can help other
Exactly.
people as much. So it increases our reach. So it is
Totally.
important. It is important.
Totally.
Yeah, he deserves to be seen and heard worldwide. I believe so too. That's why I reached out to him. So now we're gonna do dance break. Thanks so much for
break.
being on the show. This is just
Of course,
such
thank
a
you for
gift to
having
have
me.
you on. We're gonna
this
do our
was so
dance
much
break.
fun.
So this is the first time we've ever done a live dance break. You're gonna play some music. Are you set up to go?
Yeah, let's see what
He's
we
just
got
gonna
going
play
on
us
here.
out.
Let's-
No pressure or anything. Just fun. I'm gonna dance around. I don't know. Wait, we got to do our
Let's see
dance
what we
break.
got. Let's see what we got going on here.
Okay. All right, cool. I'm going to get us in there. All right, we got some cheetahs to look at. Thanks everybody for coming to see the show. Tippy Toes Flows, to Aaron Williams, Todd Lee, Equal Means Equal. Great having everybody here. Please like and subscribe, as they say. I love that sheet. Got sound. Is that your cymbal? Yeah. Thanks to Aaron. Got a couple human animals down here and some real animals. Well, I guess we're all animals, right?
Oh, do the animal dance, oh baby. Do the animal dance, yeah baby. Do the animal dance, yeah baby. Ooh, it's an animal dance, yeah.
We're all animals. Amazing music, yeah. I love it.
Oh, an animal dance.
All right, thanks everybody for being here. Head on over to Human Animal Music on YouTube for more. If you want to be mentored, go to humananimalmusic.com. Check in with Christian there, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Thanks for being on the show, Human Animal.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.